What's the hardest thing you've had to forgive, or never could?
You ever have one of those family gatherings where the air feels thick with all the stuff nobody says out loud? Like, everyone's smiling for the photos, but you can sense the undercurrents pulling everyone in different directions? That's exactly how my birthday dinner went down last month, the one that turned my cozy suburban Chicago home into ground zero for a family feud I never saw coming. I'm Elena Vasquez, 48 years old, divorced, and the proud owner of Vasquez Logistics, a company I built from a beat-up van and a dream into an outfit that ships goods across the Midwest like clockwork. I've got the nice house in Oak Park, the kind with a wraparound porch and enough space to host without feeling cramped, but let me tell you, success like that comes with strings attached, especially when family is involved. I'd plan the evening simple: grilled steaks from the local butcher, a salad with those heirloom tomatoes Mom loves, and a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon because, hey, it was my birthday. Why not splurge a little? Invited were the usual suspects: my mom Rosa, who's 72 and still thinks potlucks solve everything; my sister Carla, 45 and perpetually between opportunities; and her daughter Mia, my 17-year-old niece who's got more attitude than a reality TV star. They showed up around 6, arms full of side dishes Mom insisted on bringing, deviled eggs, and that Jell-O salad nobody touches, and for the first hour, it was almost pleasant. We talked about the weather, how the Bears were fumbling another season, and Mom's latest book club drama. I even laughed at Carla's story about her latest job interview gone wrong, the one where the boss asked if she could lift boxes, and she pretended to have a bad back. But then came dessert: cheesecake from the bakery downtown, drizzled with caramel because I deserved it after a year of closing deals that kept the lights on for 100 employees. We were passing the wine around, me in my favorite silk blouse, the deep blue one that hugs just right and cost a small fortune at Nordstrom. Mia, slouched at the end of the table in her oversized hoodie and those jeans with more holes than fabric, reaches across for a refill. Her elbow catches the stem of my glass, and before I can even blink, red wine cascades down my front, soaking the silk like some kind of cruel baptism. The stain blooms instantly, dark and mocking, and the room freezes. Mia straightens up, looks me dead in the eye, and with this little smirk that screams teenage superiority, says, "Oops. Guess money can't buy class." If you'd told me beforehand that a single sentence from a kid could light a fuse in me, I'd have laughed it off. But there it was, hanging in the air like smoke from a fire nobody wanted to put out. Mom, ever the peacemaker, lets out this nervous chuckle and pats Mia's hand. "Oh, sweetie, that's just a joke. Elena knows you're not serious, right, honey? It's your birthday. Don't let a little spill ruin it." Carla shifts in her seat, mumbling something about Mia being clumsy, but her eyes start to me like she's waiting for the explosion. And me? I just sat there, napkin pressed to my chest, feeling the liquid seep in cold and sticky. I said nothing, zipped my lips tighter than a contract clause, because in that moment, speaking would have meant yelling, and I don't do yelling, not in my house, not on my birthday. But inside? Oh, a storm was brewing, the kind that starts quiet but gathers force like a Midwest thunderstorm rolling in off the lake. Growing up in our cramped Milwaukee row house, I'd always been the responsible one, the girl who babysat neighbors' kids to save for college while Carla chased boys and dreams that never stuck. I worked doubles at diners, studied by flashlight when the power got cut, and built my business on sheer grit, turning it into something that pays the bills for all of us in ways they take for granted. Carla's called me more times than I can count for emergencies, car repairs, rent shortfalls, Mia's braces fund, and I've covered it every time, wiring money from the joint account I set up years ago because blood's thicker than ink on a loan paper. But that comment? It wasn't just snark. It was a spotlight on every eye roll, every whisper about how I changed after the divorce from Mark, that slick attorney who left me with nothing but a settlement and a lesson in trust. Money can't buy class? Please. Class is what got me through the nights crying over spreadsheets, what kept me smiling when clients stiffed me. But apparently, to them, my nice things made me the outsider, the one who forgot where she came from. They lingered after the spill, Mom fussing over the stain like it was a scraped knee, baking soda and vinegar. Dear, "That'll fix it," while Carla steered the conversation to safer waters, asking about my latest haul from Ohio. Mia, though, kept glancing my way with that smug glint, like she'd scored a point in some game I didn't know we were playing. By 9, they were packing up, hugs exchanged with promises of next time, and I waved them off from the porch, the wine's tang still sharp in the air. Alone in the kitchen, scrubbing the blouse under the faucet, the anger settled into something sharper: resolve. I dried my hands, grabbed my laptop from the island, and logged into that family account. The balance stared back: $23,000, give or take, built from my deposits and their withdrawals. It took one click to freeze it, temporary, I told myself, just enough to make them pause. The confirmation popped up, and for the first time that night, I smiled for real. What a way to end a birthday, drawing a line they couldn't cross. But as I shut the laptop, my phone vibrated on the counter, Carla's name flashing, the time ticking past 10. I let it ring twice before answering, her voice tumbling out frantic and edged with that familiar whine. "Elena? The account. It's locked. I tried to transfer a little for gas, for Mia's thing tomorrow, and it bounced." "What happened?" "Fix it, please, this isn't funny." Carla's voice on the other end of the line carried that mix of desperation and denial I'd heard 100 times before, like she was auditioning for the role of victim in our ongoing family drama. "Elena, seriously, it's after 10, I'm trying to get Mia to bed, and now this?" The card declined at the gas station earlier, but I figured it was a hiccup. "Please, just log in and sort it out. She's got volleyball practice in the morning, and we can't be late again." I paced the kitchen, the cool tile under my feet grounding me as I glanced at the laptop still open on the counter, the freeze confirmation mocking me from the screen. Part of me wanted to hit undo, blame it on some cyber glitch, and wire the money back, but another part, the one tired of being the eternal safety net, held firm. "It's not a big deal, Carla," I said finally, keeping my tone even, like we were discussing the weather instead of her latest financial fumble. "Probably just a temporary hold from the bank. I'll call them first thing and get it squared away." She let out a relieved sigh, launching into thanks that sounded scripted, the kind you give a coworker for covering your shift. "You're the best, sis. I don't know what we'd do without you." "Yeah, well, maybe that's the problem," I thought, but I didn't say it. We hung up with her promising to pay me back soon, a vow as empty as her resume, and I poured myself a glass of the leftover Cabernet, ironic, given the spill, to settle my nerves. Sitting at the island, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge, I let the events of the night replay like a bad rerun, each frame sharpening the edges of my resentment. Flashback to our childhood in that drafty Milwaukee duplex, where winters meant piling under threadbare blankets and summers meant dodging bill collectors at the door. Mom worked double shifts at the factory, stitching uniforms until her fingers bled, while Dad vanished early on, leaving us to fend for ourselves. I was the fixer even then, cooking ramen for dinner, tutoring Carla through her CS to keep her from flunking out. She was the dreamer, always talking big about escaping to California or becoming a singer, but her plans fizzled like cheap fireworks. College for me was community classes paid with waitressing tips. For her, it was a semester of parties before she met Mia's dad, a fleeting musician who bailed faster than a bad investment. I built Vasquez Logistics in my garage, hauling small loads for local stores, expanding to trucks and contracts that now span from Chicago to Indianapolis. Every milestone, first employee, first big client, came with sweat, not handouts. Yet Carla? She's leaned on me since Mia was born, that joint account becoming her lifeline for everything from daycare to dance lessons. By the time I finished the wine, the anger had cooled into strategy. No more blind generosity, time for boundaries with teeth. The next morning, I skipped the bank call and headed to the office instead, the autumn leaves crunching under my tires as I drove the 20 minutes to my downtown high-rise. My desk overlooked the Chicago River, a view that always reminded me how far I'd come, and I dove into emails, pushing the family mess to the back burner. But around lunch, Tom, my accountant, a burly guy in his 50s with a bear's tattoo and a knack for numbers, dropped by with coffee. Heard about the family dinner, he said with a grin, handing me a latte. Sounds like a classic Vasquez throwdown. I laughed it off, but then mentioned the account freeze casually, testing the waters. Tom's eyes lit up. He'd handled enough of Carla's emergencies to know the score. Smart move, he replied. That promised loan for Mia's tuition? The 10 grand from Spring? We can structure it as a formal. Note now, interest at market rate, payments due monthly. Sends a message without being outright nasty. It was perfect, clever, not cruel, the kind of move that stings without scars. I greenlit it, and by afternoon, the paperwork was drafted, a polite letter outlining the terms, sent certified to Carla's address. As I signed off, a small chuckle escaped me, imagining her face when it arrived, probably calling it a misunderstanding while scrambling for excuses. The satisfaction was real, a quiet payback for the wine and the words, but it came with a twinge, like overeating at a holiday meal. Was I really holding my niece's education hostage over a snide remark? Mia wasn't blameless, sure, with her eye rolls and social media flexes, but she was still a kid navigating a world that rewarded flash over follow-through. Still, boundaries are boundaries, and I'd drawn mine in permanent ink. The workday wound down with a client call that sealed a new route to Milwaukee, poetic, given the ghosts it stirred, and I headed home around 7, stopping for takeout Thai because cooking felt like too much effort. Unwinding on the couch with Pad CEW and the remote, I scrolled Instagram absent-mindedly, a habit from quieter nights. That's when I saw it, Mia's story, posted an hour ago, her posing in front of a trendy mall storefront, shopping bags dangling from her arms like trophies. The caption read, "Retail therapy hits different when family's got your back. Who needs class when you've got cash? Hashtag birthday vibes, hashtag blessed." And there, at the end, a winking emoji next to a wine glass icon, subtle as a billboard. My fork paused midair, the noodles forgotten as heat crept up my neck. She was flaunting it, twisting the knife from last night into something public, like our private mess was her entertainment. Little did she know, the cash flow was trickling to a halt, but that post? It lit a new spark, making me wonder just how deep her digs would go before she felt the fallout. As I set the phone down, a notification pinged, another from her, this time a direct message. Saw your car in the drive. Nice upgrade. Too bad not everything lasts. What did that mean, and why did it feel like she was already circling closer to home than I liked? Mia's direct message glowed on my phone screen like a taunt from across the room, that cryptic line about my car upgrade and things not lasting hitting closer to home than I cared to admit. I stared at it for a good 5 minutes, fork still dangling with forgotten noodles, wondering if she was just fishing or if she'd pieced together more from the family grapevine than I realized. At 17, kids like her have that sixth sense for drama, amplified by social media echo chambers where every slight becomes a saga. I didn't reply, best not to feed the fire, but it gnawed at me as I cleared the takeout containers and headed upstairs, the house settling around me with creaks that sounded louder in the silence. Sleep came fitful, dreams mixing the wine spill with old ledgers from my early business days, where every dollar felt like a battle won. Morning brought the usual routine, coffee black and strong, a quick scan of the logistics dashboard showing trucks on schedule from Milwaukee to Chicago, and a drive to the office that gave me time to stew. The letter to Carla would land today, I figured, stirring up the pot just enough to make her think twice about Mia's antics. But by 10, my assistant buzzed through. "Your sister's on line 1, Elena." Sounds heated. I took the call in the conference room, away from prying ears, bracing for the fallout. Carla didn't disappoint, her voice a whirlwind of accusation from the get-go. "What is this garbage in the mail? A loan note? With interest? Elena, we talked about the tuition. It's for Mia's future, not some game you're playing. You froze the account last night, and now this? It's like you're trying to bury us." I leaned against the table, the city skyline blurring behind the glass, and kept my response measured, laced with that dry humor that sometimes diffuses her storms. "Bury you? Carla, come on, it's business. You asked for the money, I gave it. Now it's time to treat it like an adult transaction, not a favor from the money tree." She paused, then unloaded the twist that made my coffee turn sour in my stomach. Adult? You're the one acting like a loan shark. That fund you co-signed for Mia's college, it's all tied together. If you audit it, like the letter threatens, her dreams go up in smoke. Acting school in New York, the one she's been prepping for since freshman year. You want that on your conscience, sis? Punishing a kid over a spilled drink. College fund. The words landed like a gut punch, dragging up memories I'd buried under years of deposits and withdrawals. It started innocent enough, back when Mia was 10 and Carla hit a rough patch after losing her retail job, 20 grand from my savings, earmarked for education, locked in a joint investment account to grow for the future. I'd signed off without a second thought, figuring family safety nets were what success was for. But life happened, Carla's investments in get-rich schemes, Mia's endless extras like summer camps, and that pricey phone plan. The balance had dwindled, and now it was a weapon in their arsenal, guilting me into compliance. Part of me softened, who wants to be the aunt who derails a niece's shot at Broadway, but the businesswoman in me saw the manipulation clear as day. They'd turned my generosity into chains, and that wine-soaked quip was the key turning in the lock. Hanging up, I sat there for a spell, the weight of it pressing down like the humidity before a summer storm. Was I the villain here, squeezing blood from stones, or just finally demanding accountability in a family that treated me like an ATM with legs? The dilemma twisted in my gut, making me question every yes I'd ever given. But resolve won out. I dialed Sarah, my lawyer, her voice crisp as she answered from her loop office. Elena, what's the play? I laid it out. Proceed with the audit notice, but frame it as a review for compliance, buying time while highlighting any misuse. Make it witty, I added, half joking. Something that says we're partners in this, not adversaries. She chuckled, promising a draft by end of day, clever legalese that would force transparency without outright war. It felt satisfying, a step toward balance, but as I hung up, that twinge lingered. Mia's face from the dinner table flashed in my mind, not the smirking teen, but the little girl who'd once baked me lopsided cookies for my birthday. Had I crossed into territory where revenge tasted more bitter than sweet? The afternoon dragged with meetings, a tense negotiation over delayed shipments from Ohio that mirrored my own delays in family peace, and I cut out early, around 5, craving the quiet of home. Pulling into the driveway, the sun dipping low and casting long shadows, I noticed the garage light flickering oddly, like someone had left it on a timer wrong. I hit the opener, the door rumbling up to reveal my workbench cluttered more than usual, tools askew and a stack of papers shifted. My heart skipped. I hadn't touched them since last week's inventory. Footprints in the dust, small, sneakers, led to the corner where I kept personal files, the ones with financial histories I'd archived but never digitized. Mia. It had to be. Maybe she tailed me home after school, curiosity or spite driving her to snoop, thinking she'd find cash or secrets to leverage. I straightened the mess, pulse racing, and locked it tight, the click echoing my growing unease. Those papers held more than numbers, receipts of every bailout, notes on Carla's patterns that painted her as the chronic borrower she was. If Mia saw them, what story would she spin? Empowerment or ammunition? As I headed inside, phone in hand to text Carla a warning, another message popped up from Mia, the number unfamiliar, but the tone unmistakable. Aunt Elena, we need to talk. I know about the money trails. The ones you hide in the garage. Call me before Mom finds out. The words blurred for a second, my thumb hovering over reply, the uncertainty thickening like fog off the lake. What exactly had she uncovered in those shadows, and how much deeper was this family rift about to cut? Mia's message burned a hole in my pocket all evening, that threat about the money trails and keeping it from Mom hanging like a storm cloud I couldn't outrun. I toyed with calling her, laying cards on the table in some Aunt Niece heart-to-heart, but pride, or maybe just plain stubbornness, kept me silent. Instead, I busied myself with dinner, a solitary stir-fry of veggies and chicken that tasted like cardboard, washed down with herbal tea to steady my nerves. The garage incident replayed in my head, Those small footprints in the dust, the shuffled papers that chronicled years of my quiet support turning into what looked like exploitation from the outside. By bedtime, I'd convinced myself it was overreach on her part, a teen bluff born of boredom and borrowed grudges, but sleep evaded me, leaving me to stare at the ceiling and question if I'd ignited a fire that would consume us all. The next day dawned gray and drizzly, the kind of Chicago weather that mirrors a foul mood, and I arrived at the office early, diving into a backlog of invoices to drown out the family static. Sarah's audit notice draft landed in my inbox by 9, polished and pointed, worded to suggest partnership while underscoring the need for full disclosure on fund usage. I approved it with a few tweaks, adding a line about mutual benefits that felt like a velvet glove over an iron fist, witty enough to make them squirm without outright hostility. As it went out, a small thrill mixed with guilt. This was revenge in slow motion, clever and contained, but targeting Mia's future still felt like punching down. Around noon, Mom called, her voice a blend of worry and that meddlesome cheer she reserves for crises. "Elena, dear, Carla's beside herself with this letter business. Says it's tearing the family apart. Why don't we do one of those interventions? You know, like on Dr. Phil's Sit Down, Air It Out, maybe hug it out at the end. I'll bring coffee and those muffins you like." I nearly snorted into my coffee mug. Hug it out? With Carla's drama queen routine and Mia's smartphone shield? But isolation wasn't my style, and maybe facing them head-on would defuse the bomb Mia had lit. "Fine, Mom," I said. "Come over tonight. 7 sharp." She clucked approval, promising to rally the troops, and hung up with instructions to wear something comfortable, like we're all friends again. Friends. The word stuck like a thorn as I powered through the afternoon, sealing a contract extension with a Milwaukee distributor that ironically tied back to our roots. By 6, I'd prepped the living room, cleared the coffee table, set out neutral snacks like cheese and crackers, and even staged my next move, envelopes for each containing gifts designed to pivot the narrative. For Carla, a check for $2,000 earmarked for job training at a local community center. For Mia, a $500 prepaid card loaded only for educational apps and books, nothing frivolous. It was tough love wrapped in generosity, a way to say I cared without caving, and yeah, a touch of irony in restricting the very things they'd mocked me for providing. They arrived promptly, the rain pattering against the windows like impatient fingers, Mom leading with her umbrella and a Tupperware of muffins that smelled like home. Carla followed, eyes red-rimmed and clutching her purse like a shield, while Mia trailed last, hood up and phone in hand, avoiding my gaze. We settled on the sectional, the air thick with awkward energy, and Mom kicked off with her peacemaker script. "Okay, girls, no yelling, just talking. Elena, you start. What's eating you?" I took a breath, keeping it light with a half smile. The wine spill was funny at first, Mia, clumsy kid stuff. But the class crack? It landed like a reminder that my hard work gets eyed like a punchline. And Carla, the money, it's not endless. Time to own it. Carla jumped in, voice rising like a poorly tuned engine. "Own it? You're the one sending shark letters. Mia's college dreams poof because of your grudge." Mia nodded along, peeking up with that sullen stare, but stayed quiet, fingers flying. Over her screen under the table. The intervention devolved into a comedy of errors faster than a sitcom plot, Mom spilling muffin crumbs everywhere, Carla gesturing wildly and knocking over a water glass, echoing the wine fiasco in a way that had me biting back a laugh, while Mia finally piped up with, "This is lame." Like, therapy for what? Rich aunt problems. I let the chaos roll for a bit, then slid the envelopes across. "Before we hug it out, these are for you." Strings attached, but from the heart. Carla tore hers open, eyes widening at the check, mumbling thanks through confusion. Mia's turn brought a smirk. "Books? Seriously?" But she pocketed it anyway. It backfired hilariously when Carla tried hugging me, her perfume overwhelming, and Mia rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd stick. They left around 9, the rain easing to a mist, with tentative promises of better days, but I caught Mia lingering by the door, whispering to Carla about the garage stuff. satisfaction mixed with unease. My gifts had bought a truce, but the wit in restricting them felt sharper in hindsight, like I'd just armed them with more reasons to resent. Alone again, I tidied up, the muffin scent clinging like a false comfort, and stepped out to the driveway for fresh air. The covered shapes under the tarps, my spare business vehicles, the ones I'd quietly flagged for repossession to symbolize the end of easy rides, loomed in the shadows, a hint of the bigger play brewing. As I turned back, my phone buzzed. An anonymous email from what looked like a burner account, subject, family secrets. Inside, a blurry photo of my garage papers, captioned, Mia's got friends. Watch the driveway tomorrow. Heart pounding, I secured the tarps tighter, the uncertainty swelling like the incoming fog. Morning couldn't come soon enough, or too soon, and when it did, Mia was the first to arrive, drawn by some pull, her steps halting as she approached the edge of the drive, face draining of color at what peeked from beneath the edge of the cover. Spotting Mia out there in the early morning light, her figure silhouetted against the misty driveway like a scene from one of those noir films I binge on rainy weekends, sent a chill straight through me despite the warming sun. She'd beaten me to the punch, arriving on foot probably from down the block where Carla's place sat, her steps tentative as she edged closer to the tarps I'd secured the night before. I froze behind the kitchen window, robe cinched tight, watching her reach out and tug at the corner of one cover, the one over Carla's old SUV, the hand-me-down I'd co-signed the loan for years back as a family favor. The fabric slipped just enough to reveal the wheel clamp glinting like a handcuff, and her hand flew to her mouth, breath catching in a gasp that carried across the dew-kissed grass. Whatever she'd imagined from that anonymous email, this was the gut punch, the symbols of their borrowed stability, repossessed overnight by my quiet directive to the finance team, leaving nothing but empty spots and a single auction sign hammered into the gravel. Fresh starts begin here. Bids welcome. I should have felt triumphant, that witty closure to the saga, the car's gone, the handouts halted, a visual class lesson served cold. But as she staggered back, phone tumbling from her grip, a wave of nausea hit instead. This wasn't just payback, it was demolition, stripping away the illusions we'd all clung to. I stepped out onto the porch, the boards creaking under my slippers, calling her name soft but firm. Mia, wait. Let's talk about this. She whipped around, eyes wide and accusatory, cheeks flushed from the chill, or the shock, I couldn't tell. Talk? Aunt Elena, you took them? Mom's car, my ride to school, everything? Over what? A stupid spill. Her voice cracked, the bravado from dinner and texts crumbling into something raw, almost childlike, and for a split second, I saw the niece who'd once idolized my big city stories, not the smirking teen wielding barbs like weapons. Before I could respond, tires crunched on the street, Mom's old sedan pulling up fast, Carla spilling out the passenger side with wild eyes and a phone clutched like a lifeline. Mia texted me, said something about the driveway. Elena, what the hell did you do now? Mom followed slower, shawl wrapped tight against the morning bite, her face a mask of weary disappointment. They converged on us like a mismatched tribunal, Carla yanking the tarp fully off to confirm the worst, bare concrete where the vehicles had sat, the clamp mocking them from the curb where the repo guy had left it as a courtesy notice. This is insane, Carla spat, whirling on me. You freeze accounts, send lawyers, and now this? Our cars, our lives, gone because your feelings got hurt? Mia's got practice, school, everything. Mom placed a hand on her arm, murmuring about calming down, but her eyes met mine with that silent plea. Fix it, Elena. You're the strong one. I stood my ground, arms crossed to hide the tremble, and laid it out plain. The audit results Sarah had rushed over that morning, showing how the college fund had been siphoned for non-essentials like Mia's mall sprees and Carla's investment in a failed online course. It wasn't just the wine or the words, I said, voice steady, but laced with the humor that sometimes shields the hurt. It was years of me propping you up while you took swings. The cars? Collateral on loans you never repaid. This is reality, not revenge, though yeah, it stings a bit, doesn't it? Mia picked up her phone, fingers shaking as she scrolled, probably drafting some viral takedown, but Carla's face shifted mid-rant, a flicker of recognition dawning. You co-signed them, Elena. If they're gone, it's on us, but you pulled the trigger. The admission hung there, heavy as the fog lifting, forcing them to confront the web they'd woven with my threads. They argued in circles for what felt like hours, but was probably 20 minutes, Carla demanding I call the repo company, Mom suggesting we pray on it, Mia silent now, staring at the sign like it held prophecies. I offered alternatives. Public transit passes I'd already loaded on cards, job leads for Carla from my network, even a ride to school that day. It was my final clever twist, turning their loss into a push toward independence, satisfying in its symmetry, the class they mocked now taught through absence. But as they piled back into Mom's car, defeated and divided, Carla's parting shot landed soft. We thought you were family, not the bank. The engine roared away, leaving me alone with the empty drive, the victory tasting like ash. My business hummed on, deals closing without a hitch, but the house echoed emptier, meals solitary, calls unanswered. Days turned to a week of radio silence, broken only by a vague email from Mom about giving space. Had I restored balance or shattered the last bridge? Mia's dreams might pivot, Carla's habits harden, but me? I wondered if the real cost was the hollow echo of success without someone to share the wins. Money can't buy class, sure, but can it buy back forgiveness? Or am I left with just the quiet of my own making?